Supernatural creatures have been a part of not just religious circles, but culture in general as far back as we can trace recorded human history. Now, based on your circle, various depictions of these beings may exist, but what are some of the most well-known supernatural creatures that exist? Let's explore that right now. Hey guys, welcome back to FTD Facts. My name is Leroy Kenton, and now before I jump into this episode, leave a like on this video, as well as subscribe and ring that bell if you're new here to FTD Facts, and make sure you watch this video all the way until the end. I don't want you to miss any of these.
A second hurts really bad in the face of eternity, but only for a moment.
So starting at number 10, we have vampires. Though their portrayals will vary across culture, there are a few things that remain the same. Vampires feed on the living to remain immortal. They also hate sunlight, so they try to avoid that as much as possible. And they got these really sharp teeth, of course, to feed on their victims' blood. Now, often a metaphor for the dangers of sexual desire, vampires have become a staple in pop culture for over 100 years. Vampires also got a huge push in popularity with Bram Stoker's novel Dracula.
He will live through the centuries to come, as I have lived.
Demons come in at number 9. So check this out, guys. The term demon comes from the Greek word daimon, meaning deity or lesser spirit. Now, demons were fallen angels who followed Lucifer from the time that he was cast out of heaven by God. And demons are usually associated with evil, but in pre-Christian and non-Christian cultures, demons actually were not necessarily good or evil. They were kind of like neutral. Then again, there could be good demons and bad demons, not just evil. Now, demons can also take on the form of humans, like in the case of an incubus, for example, which is a demon in the shape of a human male for the purpose of literally just committing sexual acts. Or there's also the succubus, which is the female version of incubus.
Me and Daddy.
No way.
Number 8, we have werewolf. So the werewolf is a mythological animal type creature, and it's a subject of many stories throughout the world. And werewolves are, according to some legends, people who morph into these terrifying yet powerful wolf creatures. Others are half human and half wolf, but all are just bloodthirsty beasts who can't control their desire to destroy people and animals. Now, in many werewolf stories, a person only turns into a werewolf when there's a full moon, and that theory may actually have some kind of truth to it, because according to a study conducted by Australia's Calvary Mater Newcastle Hospital, a full moon actually brings out the beasts inside of humans, and they actually notice a spike in crime rate when there's a full moon. Now let's look at elves. An elf is a type of human-like supernatural being in Germanic mythology and folklore. In medieval Germanic-speaking cultures, elves were seen generally to have been beings that had supernatural and magic powers, as well as they were beautiful. They were capable of either causing mischief and hindering humans in whatever they were trying to do, or they could actually support humans in doing what they have to do. In some depictions, elves are luminous beings said to be more beautiful than the sun, and humans and elves can actually inbreed and produce a half human, half elf. Humans can also apparently become elves after they die, and there was a considerable overlap between the worship of human ancestors and the worship of elves back in the day.
To rise above the height of all your fathers since the days of Elendil.
Next up, we have the Hellhound. The Hellhound is a dog of hell found in mythology, folklore, and fiction. Hellhounds typically have features such as being bigger than other types of hounds, as well as black fur, glowing red eyes, super strength or speed, as well as ghostly or phantom characteristics. They can like disappear, appear. And sometimes they even have the ability to talk. They're often assigned to guard the entrance of the world of the dead or undertake duties related to the afterlife or the supernatural, such as hunting down lost souls or guarding supernatural treasures. As the legend goes, if a person happens to see a hellhound 3 times, he or she will die an abrupt and unseen death. Halfway in we have trolls at number 5. Trolls in early Scandinavian folklore are giant beings, sometimes having magic powers, and they're very hostile towards people, and trolls lived in castles as well as haunted various places at nighttime. If exposed to sunlight, they burst or turn to stone. Now in later works, trolls often were human-sized or even smaller beings, similar to dwarves or elves, and they lived in mountains or under bridges. And trolls in modern tales for stories also lived under bridges, and they would bother travelers in various different ways.
Ariel, listen to me. The human world, it's a mess.
Mermaids come in at number 4. Now mermaid, as well as the masculine term merman, they're marine creatures with the head and upper body of a human being and the tail of a fish. In European folklore, mermaids, sometimes called sirens, and mermen were beings who, like fairies, had magical and prophetic powers. They loved music and they often sang, and though they could live a very long time, they were mortal and they actually had no souls. Though sometimes they were kind, mermaids and mermen were often very dangerous to people. And to see one while you were on a ship voyage means that, well, you're gonna get shipwrecked real soon. They were often up to no good. They would sometimes lure people to death by drowning. So if you saw one at the sea, don't look. Just look away. Cover your ears. Chupacabra comes in number 3. So these chupacabras in Latin American pop culture, they're a monstrous creature that attacks animals and consumes their blood. Now the name is derived from the Spanish word chupar, meaning to suck, and cabra, meaning goat. And the chupacabra only recently joined vampires as blood-sucking creatures. Now chupacabras were first reported in 1995. Of course, vampires go way back before then. And when the first reports of chupacabras came out in 1995 in Puerto Rico, they were blamed for attacks on goats, sheep, as well as other domestic animals, supposedly leaving uneaten carcasses that were drained of blood. Now early reports described a creature that stood upright and resembled a large reptilian kangaroo with huge red eyes. But no actual specimens of chupacabras were ever found, and skeptics suggest that people who say that they've seen these chupacabras were probably just influenced by sci-fi movies.
When they stumbled across that alleged creature of the night, called it hairless with a long snout, short front legs, and long back legs.
Now let's talk about dragons. Now dragons are among the most popular and enduring of the world's mythological and supernatural creatures. Dragons' tales are known in many cultures, from Americas to Europe to India, China, you name it. And they have a long and rich history in many forms and continue to populate books, films, TV shows. Now it's not clear when or where these stories of dragons first emerged, but the huge flying serpents were described at least as early as the age of the ancient Greeks and Sumerians. For much of the history of dragons, they're thought as being like any other mythological animal, sometimes useful in protecting humans, or sometimes could prove very deadly, and they could breathe fire too. Scary creatures sometimes. And finally, number 1, we have zombies. So the zombie are undead creatures that are frequently featured in works of horror, fiction, and film. Now while its roots may possibly be traced back to the zombie of the Haitian voodoo religion, the modern fictional zombies was largely developed by the works of American filmmaker George A. Romero. Now zombies may be created in a variety of ways, like early depictions showed drawings from Haitian voodoo, and they often represented witchcraft as a means for reviving corpses. Now Haitian zombies are said to be created by evil priests or sorcerers to do their bidding. Now methods of zombification have developed in fiction, including radiation exposure. Especially one big theme in pop culture right now is the zombie apocalypse. Zombies are often depicted as these weird, half-dead looking creatures that infect people by biting them or scratching them. Then they spread their zombie genes, so that person now becomes a zombie.
Which leads me to my second rule, the double tap.
Alright guys, well that's it for me. That was a look at 10 surprising supernatural creatures that exist. Now whether you believe that any of these were real or fake or whatever, I'll leave that up to you. But which one of these creatures do you actually believe are real? I'd love to hear your thoughts about anything that I shared in this episode down below. And before you guys get out of here, I'm going to be leaving you with another episode that you can check out. I definitely don't want you to miss it. It's going to be coming up right now. So it's been awesome hanging out with you, and I'll see you next time in another episode.